Hello there, my name is Martin Henley. This is the Effective Marketing YouTube channel. And if you've spent a second here, you will know that I'm on a mission to give you everything you need to be successful in your business. Now, as far as I know, the only way for you to be successful in your business is to be more effective with your sales and your marketing. So not only am I here giving you everything I know about sales and marketing, I'm also pulling in anyone I can find with experience to share that will be valuable to you in your mission to be more effective with your sales and marketing and more successful in your business. Now, you can support me in this endeavor simply by watching this video through or liking or sharing or commenting. But especially if you find something interesting and useful in this video and you implement it in your business, then please let me know in the comments how this is working for you, because that is what excites and motivates me. What also excites and motivates me is today's guest. So today's guest has marketing agency experience going back to 1995 when he was an account handler with Momentum Worldwide. He was CEO of his own agency, Creative Race, for 18 years, growing it to a 12.5 million in turnover or income, 175 staff and 2 offices. He is currently a guest lecturer at the School of Marketing at Coventry University and an agency coach and mentor at Beyond Noise, where he mentors agency owners. He was introduced to us by the brilliant Matt Daley, who described his book, Standout or Die, as a wow moment. There is absolutely nothing quirky about today's guest. I've checked. Today's guest is Gareth Healey. Good afternoon, Gareth.
Good afternoon, Martin. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm still thinking about quirkiness. Let's hope I come across a bit more quirky and less boring than I said I was.
Yeah, the thing is, I've got a theory about how to bring about peace in the Middle East.
Okay.
Yeah, you got serious then all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You know when you're watching a game show and there's all these people
Yeah.
lined up and you don't care about them at all, and then they ask them like 3 questions, where are you from, what do you do, whatever, and then you really care about them. So what I think they should do in the Middle East is they should have game shows which are mixed from the different backgrounds, and then people will start caring about each other a bit more. And I think that might not be the peace solution, but I think it would contribute to peace in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So I just think if there is something quirky about people, it's a little bit of a hook to get them interested in the conversation. But, if you're as boring as you say you are, then, that's also absolutely fine. Maybe that is your quirk. Happily boring. Cool. So thank you so much for being here, man. I'm really excited to have this conversation because your man, Matt Daley, really bigged you up. He really, really, really enjoys you, man. So I'm expecting this to be a really interesting and useful conversation.
Yeah,
so
let's hope I can live up to Matt's billing.
Okay, well, absolutely no pressure. Absolutely no pressure. But you'd better, because otherwise this is going to be a waste of everyone's time. So you know the drill. There's only 5 questions. Your specialist subject is mentoring marketing agencies. So the 5 questions: how are you qualified to talk to us about mentoring marketing agencies? Who do you work with? How do you add value in their lives? What is your recommendation for people who want to do better with their marketing agency? What should people read? And who can you throw under the bus who might enjoy or at least endure to have a conversation like this with me? So, question number 1, how are you, Gareth Healey, qualified to talk to us about mentoring marketing agencies?
Well, the first thing I'd say is comes with experience. And I've got a hell of a lot of that. When you mentioned 1995 then in the intro, that is true. That is my first job in agencies after uni, yeah. So a long time ago. That was before many of your listeners or viewers were born, probably, and certainly before the digital revolution. So digital agencies, digital marketing at that time, of course, didn't exist. So yeah, but I've been around in agencies for more than 25 years, and again, Martin, as you said, I sort of started out in agencies after uni, working in the business as an account handler. So I got some experience on the ground, and then joined an agency in Leeds in the UK to move agencies to get a better job, more responsibility, which was the best move I ever made, because I actually joined a business that only in a couple of years was looking, the founder of which the agency was looking to retire. He was still only in his mid-50s himself. He wasn't that old, but he wanted to do something else. So I bought that business with two other business partners. So in terms of qualification, I quickly became an agency owner almost overnight. I was about 30 then, actually, which felt really young at the time. I felt as if I was completely out of my depth, and probably was. But when I see young people setting up businesses now in the early 20s, and at that age, it doesn't feel 30 years old as being owner of a business doesn't feel particularly young anymore, but it did at that time for me. So baptism of fire, and I ran that business for 15 years then as CEO. We bought our third partner out. It became two of us, so we're 50% shareholders, and I was as chief exec, and grew it to quite a sizable business, actually. Of course, as you mentioned, it was 12.5 million turnover, our biggest year, and 175 people across just the two offices in Leeds and the north of England and London, of course. So, great experience, and a big old business, actually, for an agency. 175 people is a sizable business as an independent. So, in terms of qualification, how am I qualified? I went through that journey of growing that business, and through the various stages, you have to sort of adapt your style to and your leadership style over that period, to cope with the different demands of a different size and a different stage of business life, really, from relatively small up to sort of a big, say 150, 175 people, needs a different leadership style, a different management style, different systems, different processes. And I was lucky enough and had the ability, thankfully, to sort of adapt my style over those years to cope and manage and make the most of that change, until the point in 2017 when I sort of needed a bit of a change, really. I'd sort of had enough of, not the business actually, but I was still responsible for a lot of the clients, and I'd sort of had my fill on being directly responsible. I had clearly with the people a lot of help and a lot of direct reports. I wasn't day to day involved, but I wanted a change from sort of running clients like that. So I sold my share of that business to my business partner, actually, and decided to leave the agency world altogether. That was it, done for me. But after about 6 months, I realised that after 20 odd years, and I sometimes describe it as like having a hangover. So when you have a bad hangover, you don't feel great, and obviously the morning after. But then as the mind clears a bit and you don't feel quite as you're not struggling quite as much, you reflect back on the night and think, actually, not sure that it was a pretty good night. It was a good night. It was worth it in the end, worth the hangover and the headache and all the rest of it. And I felt like a bit like that when I left my business. So about 6 months later, I thought, you know what, agency life, not too bad. Really enjoyed it. It'd be a shame to leave all this behind completely. So I haven't started another agency. I thought, I don't want to start another agency. What could I and should I do? I thought, well, I'll work with and help other agencies grow their business as a consultant, which, again, as you mentioned, that's what I'm doing now.
Okay, cool. So more than qualified to talk to us about mentoring agencies, I think. I mean, 175 staff and 12.5 million turnover, that puts you in the top something percent of,
yes,
like you say, independent agencies. Yeah. There's a lot of agencies that don't get anywhere near that. Yeah. There's something very particular, I think, about a marketing agency as a business. It feels like you are kind of in the hopes and dreams business. Do you know what I mean?
I think I do, yeah.
And also, you're in the hopes and dreams business, and also you're in the false expectations business, because, I mean, yeah. So I'm interested to know how you kind of manage that situation at scale, because Yeah, because I think that's a really interesting dynamic. But you're not only responsible for your business, but you're responsible for the success of other people's business. And they have, I think, very often an inflated sense of how successful they should be. Is that true?
I think it is. I think, Martin, the hopes and dreams business. I've never heard it described like that before, but I think that's a great way of describing it, and a great way of sort of of sort of talking about many agencies, not all, but absolutely, I come across and work with a lot of people who are great people, but the expectation to grow their business to a level and then usually sell it is huge. That's a sort of motivating factor for most people I'm working with. Nothing wrong in that, of course, but I do find it surprising and reflect on it sometimes that maybe it's a modern trend that is fueled by media and fueled by all the sort of exposure we have to various different things through social media and other types of media now, that you should sort of grow your business and sell it. It wasn't back in the day, years ago, necessarily. I don't think that sort of trend to start, it's not just agencies, but any business, that to start a business was about sort of starting a business, making some money, growing it, and not never selling it, but the idea was to sort of grow it to a level and enjoy it, really. Whereas now it all seems about hopes and dreams and of sort of growing a business and selling it, and lots of those hopes and dreams are massively inflated. I've talked about £12 million turnovers, 175 people. That is incredibly difficult to do. It's very, very easy to start an agency. Probably one of the easiest businesses to start. You just need. We could start one this afternoon, you and I, if we wanted to, with a mobile phone, certainly a laptop, even a phone. If we had the will, we could sort of set up a company and do a website and all the rest of it. And we're there with agency. We don't need any qualifications. I'd like to think we both have them, but we don't need them. We don't need any capital investment, particularly. We don't need to buy anything. We can go out there and say we're a marketing agency. So easy to start, relatively easy to grow to a certain level. Not easy, but relatively easy with some hard work and and a bit of focus. You can win some clients and gain a foothold as a company and start to sort of employ a few people and grow it to a certain level. But then to scale, people talk a lot about scaling these days, which frustrates me a bit, if I'm honest. Not to go off on too much of a tangent, but I think people use the word growth and scale interchangeably, and to me they're not the same things. You can grow an agency. But scaling an agency is incredibly difficult, because I see the point being, I see the difference between I consider the difference between growth and scale being where your revenue, if you're scaling, your revenue is outpacing your cost growth. Your costs might be increasing, but certainly the revenue is, the lines are outpacing each other. Revenue is growing far faster than costs. So that to me is scaling, whereas growth might be that, but it also might be revenue and costs are growing at a similar, maybe not the same, but a similar rate. You're still growing the business. You're still maybe more revenue, more profit, more people, more clients, whatever it might be, but it's not scaling. And the point being, I guess, ultimately is, it's hard to scale easier to scale, not easy, but easier to scale a product business than it is an agency, because the agency is fundamentally founded and built upon people power. It's people, its ability to provide services through people. And the bigger you get, the more people you need, the bigger clients you work with, the better people you need. Frankly, the more expensive people you need to cope and deal and work with expensive or highly paid and highly skilled people in bigger clients. You need bigger people to employ bigger people, and therefore costs often sort of grow at the same level. So that's something that in terms of hopes and dreams, people assume, lots of people assume that there's a big figure, it's going to be relatively easy. If we've done 500k turnover in a couple of years, great. That's an achievement, actually. Massive achievement. But lots of people talk to me about, well, if it's 500k in a couple of years, then then let's just extrapolate this out. In 3, 4, 5 years' time, we're going to be at 4, 5, 6 million, and that could be the case. I hope it is for those people wanting that, but it's not as easy as what often people think.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, we clearly operated at very different levels. I started exactly like you said. Didn't have a laptop, but I went to PC World or something. And when I said, I'm starting a business, they were very happy to offer me credit. And then I was effectively a business, and I was a marketing agency. But then I grew it from the ground. Like, I wrote a list of, I think these are the 10 people who might buy something from me. None of them ever did. I did like the local networking thing. And so I was very organic, ground up kind of approach. What's the point about that? So the hopes and dreams I was dealing with is probably when they came to me for help with their marketing, I was the first person who'd ever helped them with their marketing. And all that might have happened to them previously is that they told their mum and their close family, their cousins, I've got a business. And they all told them it was great. So they expected it to be brilliant. What's the point of this? There is a question in this. The question is, more broadly than just marketing agencies, and I don't know how long this has been the narrative, but it is. And like you say, it's become exacerbated more recently because now it seems that the only point of being in business is to grow and scale and do those things.
Yeah.
But it's almost like immediately that you're in business, it has to grow.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is even relevant or interesting to you, but that thing, it seems to me, is really weird. Why can't it just be that you should get your business to where you need it to be, to where it's delivering what it needs for you and for the people who you work for and your clients? It's not relevant to you. You don't have to answer if you don't want to.
No, I think it's a great point, Martin. It's absolutely relevant to me because I think, again, lots of people that I work with, and my business is agencies, but as you say, it doesn't just apply to agencies in any way. But a lot of people I work with are they may well be, they have these targets in mind, but of course, working from where they've started out, which is again they've usually been reasonably successful and at a decent stage, but they've got these targets in mind, but they don't, because they've never done it, realize the realities of running a big business, and many of them actually, when they start to do that, struggle because they don't want to run a big business. They don't want to have the responsibility of 10, 50, 100 people. It's not their skill set. It's not why they started out in business. They started out an agency because they loved creating things. They loved marketing, advertising. They were very skilled at SEO or whatever it might be. So therefore they want to use those skills. They don't want to manage 10 people, 50 people, 100 people. So yeah, I think your point is a very valid one. It's a valuable exercise, I think, for anybody in any business to look at it and say, if they own the business, to look at it and say, what do I really want out of this business? Is it a £55 million exit, or is it, no, I want a good lifestyle. I want to take out, in terms of remuneration or benefits, 50 grand a year, 100 grand a year, 200 grand a year, whatever the figure is. And therefore, what does that then mean? Does it mean I need to build a 30-person agency? No, it means I need to build a 15-person agency. I'm currently at 10 people, so I just need to get another 5 people and another 50% more clients or whatever it might be, and therefore that should. I do think. So I totally agree with you. I do think I'm a big one for growth. I hackneyed it up, maybe an old phrase, but if you're not growing, you're dying is something that I do sort of stick by. I think we all need to grow, to continue to grow in order to continue to move forward and continue to enjoy running a business, not just benefit from it. So I'm a sort of continual learner, continual grower personally. And I believe that you should have that attitude in a business, but that doesn't mean to say that you need to take your business from 10 people, 5 people to again 50 people. That might just be you've got a 10-person business, but you're continually reviewing the offer, you're continually improving and learning more about what you deliver for your clients, and you're providing a continuous improved service and better results for your clients. So I think it's a great point.
Yeah, I think 100%. I just think this idea that the phrase I heard is if you're green, you're growing. If you're red, you're dead, is what I heard. So it's the idea
Yes,
that
yeah,
like you're the
that's
ripe
right.
tomato, it's kind of
Yeah,
over. But I do think it would
yeah,
be more useful if business owners weren't under that particular pressure to grow in that
yeah,
particular way. Like you
yeah,
say, there's more areas, there's more opportunities for growth rather than just employing more people, having more
yeah,
clients, turning over more money. I just think
yeah.
that's interesting. But I suppose it
I don't know
is
whether
relevant.
you'd agree. Sorry to interrupt, but I don't know whether you agree. You being younger than me, and
I
I
don't
don't
know
know
if
whether
I'm
you'd
very
agree.
much younger than you, man.
Uh, um, if you know the sort of vibe of the world at the moment, it does seem to sort of promote this idea that you can be you should be an entrepreneur rather than a business owner.
Oh my
You know,
God.
you, you like the likes of, and I'm not criticizing. You know, the likes of Elon Musk have done fabulous things and are very successful, and all credit to them. You know, I'm a big proponent of being being successful and doing what you want to do and making an impact in the world. But it does feel as if lots of people want to. I want to be an entrepreneur. I don't want to actually run the realities of running a business, which are often hard. That people really don't want. They want to be seen as an entrepreneur, somebody that's got multiple businesses or growing businesses and selling them very quickly. That is what I feel happens a lot.
Yeah, you may have opened a can of worms here, man, because I've got I've got issues around these things. It seems to me insane. So I also started work around 95, so we're probably a similar age. And I was selling advertising, and I'll tell you how it was with the advertising that we were selling. If they weren't able to post us a copy of their logo, we would have to photocopy it like huge,
Yes.
and then somebody would color it in for it to go
Yeah.
onto the
Yeah.
press to appear in the magazines. So
Yeah.
we're looking at similar amounts of experience. The
Yeah.
point about entrepreneurs is like you're right. The focus is everyone wants to be an entrepreneur, but I'm sure when we were young, the word entrepreneur meant something different. It kind
Yeah.
of it kind of meant it had something to do with finding innovative ways to make money, and
Yes.
not being a small business owner. So
Yeah.
now, like, people will describe themselves an entrepreneur if they're running their own, if they're freelance graphic designers or
Yes.
they're print resellers, or they'll describe themselves as an entrepreneur. And I don't think that's it.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I wouldn't, not support, but I would challenge anyone who says to me that they want to run their own business, because I think it is a very special kind of torture. Like when you run your own business, you essentially commit to thinking about nothing else ever again. Like you can't
Yeah.
sit down and enjoy a movie. You can't, because always in your mind is your business.
Yeah.
So unless people are really excited, I say to them, like, think of the holidays, think of the pension, think of the company car and the thing and the other thing and all of those things, and really think about whether you want to trade all of your time all day, every day for like a really nice, comfortable 9 till 7:30 ish kind of a gig.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I also wonder about this, and I wonder if it's useful. But there's something else that seems to be going on, which is it seems to be, this is a new idea, but it seems to be that people are much more interested in extracting value rather than delivering value. So
Nice. Yeah.
exactly like you say,
Yeah.
nobody goes, or I don't experience people going into business because they want to change the world in some positive way by delivering some specific kind of value in some specific kind of way. They do
Yeah.
go into business because they want to take something meaningful at the
Yeah.
end, which is the only good reason for being in business, if you ask me,
Yeah.
because otherwise it doesn't add up. So there does seem to be, people do seem to be in a value extraction kind of mode. And this is, I
Yeah.
think, what digital currencies are about. This is what NFTs are about. It's like, it's all about what people can take rather than what they can give. Um,
Nice. Yeah. I see that totally. I think that's a great observation, Martin. And there are the extraction of value rather than delivering value. And again, many not that agencies are unique or particularly sort of guilty of this, but I do see that a lot in agency land, because I sometimes reflect that, if you were to start let's say a health drink business, and you from scratch, you created a recipe for a health drink, and wanted to produce it on mass production and market it and sell it in supermarkets or wherever. It's a huge task. There are many much more challenging early stages of that business. When we talked earlier about the ease of setting up an agency, the difficulty in setting up that type of business is far outweighs setting up an agency. You need far much more capital, far much more, many more contacts, a lot more time, investment, etc., to set up that drinks business. But some of those business, not all of them, but some of those businesses that are set up, just to use my theoretical drinks example, they are set up with a purpose in mind. They're set up to, if not to deliver a truly, a purpose which is truly world changing, but it might be we believe that we've got the recipe for a health drink that just tastes better than anything else on the market. And therefore our value is going to be that we're going to market this drink because we've created this recipe. Everybody that we show it, we get to try it, loves it, says it's better than anything else on the market, just tastes better, cleaner, whatever it is. And there's a purpose even in that sense. But just going back to agencies, with agencies, that purpose is often not there. I used to see it more in, my background is of course, as we talked about pre-digital, and what you talked about advertising back in the day. There was a more creative. There still is a creative industry, but it was very much focused on creativity then, and the purpose was to create great work. Create great ads, create great memorable communication, and who can be the most creative and who can be the most memorable. So again, there was a purpose that still exists, but I think the digital revolution has slightly overshadowed some of that to the point where we are. Talk to Matt Daley, my friend who recommended me to come on here. We often talk about those guys, Matt and his brother at Circulate. They do digital advertising, but they're absolutely passionate about it, and they see a lot of their competitors. We call it just running ads. A lot of their competitors are just running ads for clients. They're taking money off clients. They're running the ads. They're not conning anybody. They're doing their best to set ads up, run them online. Great, their competitors. But I think we talk at Circulate about much more. Should be much more than that. It shouldn't be just a case of that feels like going through the motions. You talked about growth earlier on, and we feel like at Circulate they try to be more creative. They try to create the best content. They try to not just run ads, but to place them, but then optimize them as much as they possibly can to get the best results for the clients that they possibly can. And it's that level of care, attention. Care really that I think is sets them apart, and that's what it's not particularly unique, but it's something that a lot of agencies I think don't focus on. They focus on, to your recent point, just extracting the value. How can we make more money out of these clients? And that's important, of course. I'm not saying that we need to be in business not to make money. That's absolutely one of the main focuses, but it is about, you've got to deliver the value as well, which Matt and the guys tend to try to do.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think it is unique, but I think it is increasingly rare. Because why? Because like in one of these chats, somebody told me that, I don't remember exactly where it was, but the average lifespan of a restaurant is 6 months.
Wow.
So a restaurant, on average, clearly there's examples where they go much longer, but on average, a restaurant will open its doors and close its doors within 6 months. And then, so what's going on then is that there must be a whole industry servicing the startup restaurant business that knows this is probably only good for 6 months. And so they're going to be in there extracting as much of their budgets as they can. So working essentially against those businesses, which perpetuates the situation where they close within 6 months. There is a stat, I don't know how relevant it is, but I still tell everyone every time I get the opportunity, that the average lifespan of a digital marketing customer in London is only 3 months.
Yeah.
So again, that perpetuates this idea that you better get as much as you can in those 3 months, because the likelihood is that they're not going to be there. So I do think it's increasingly rare that businesses like Matt's exist, where they really do want to deliver great value for their customers. I think it should work much better, but the question is also, like, do you get the opportunity to deliver that value? If you really want to take your time and do it nicely and well and successfully, then it takes time for that to happen. Are you going to get the opportunity? So it feels like it's kind of like a vortex where the pressure is, do you know what I mean? It's like the situation requires you to grab as much as you can while the grabbing's good, because it might not be good for very long. And so I don't know where that begins and ends. Here's the conversation I want to have, is about why marketing is so difficult. And I've got my theories, of course I have, but it seems to me that people don't understand marketing, and they definitely don't want to be investing in marketing. So like I say in all these intros, this is how you're successful. You do sales and marketing really well. But it feels to me that people don't get it and they don't want to do it and they don't like it, So what is your experience of that, and how do you overcome that for your clients to be in an opportunity to add ongoing value?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I certainly agree with that. I think it does seem to be, marketing always seems to be one of the functions of the business that in some ways is the most effective when you've got any business, not just agencies, but when you've got a marketing function that really fires and really delivers for you, for a brand or a company, then it can absolutely propel them into the position where they're market leaders or whatever it might be, and it can be wonderful. Lots of the major brands in the world, Nike is one of just as one obvious example, are marketing led brands, aren't they? So I don't think you can, and I know you're not being, I don't think you can be challenge the effectiveness of marketing when it works. But I totally agree with you in terms of marketing often struggles to find its place at the top table in big organizations, doesn't it? The boards of lots of big companies still don't necessarily have the CMO, the marketing director, whoever it might be, around the top table. Certainly have the finance director around, certainly have the sales director around, but does marketing always get a room at that table? Not always, because it can sometimes, it's certainly seen as at best an investment, or at worst a cost of running the business. And I think that's clearly a shame. And why is that? I think there are many factors, really. I think one is there's no compliance aspect to marketing in the way that there's a compliance aspect to finance or accountancy or legal services. There's occasions wherever you are in the world, there's rules and regulations that mean you have to use an accountant as a business at some point. You have to file your accounts, and if you don't, there's certainly often reasons why you need to use legal representation to not just defend issues, but or legal issues, but to transact, to buy a business, you need a lawyer, for example. So I think that whereas marketing, you don't really need it in that sense, but it is a desirable function, and you should absolutely use the marketing function. But it's also so subjective, isn't it? Unlike the accountancy firm or the finance function in a business, there's black and white. I know there are some shades of grey here and there, depending on what you're doing, but there's certainly more black and white. Whereas with marketing, it's such a broad subject. It's got broader over the years with the addition of more channels, of course, more marketing channels, more marketing activity. So it's a huge beast to get your head around. And even when you do, and you become an expert or knowledgeable even in a certain aspect of marketing, there's a frustration that I'm sure we share, and lots of the viewers or listeners will share, in that no matter what you do and how much expertise you get in marketing, bizarrely, whoever you're talking to often has a view, don't they? They always have an opinion, whether that's somebody around the client table, or the clients, which of course they're naturally going to have a view, but whether it's somebody at client level or whether it's just a mate in the pub, if you talk to somebody about some aspect of marketing, they usually chip in with some idea or opinion, which is again something that just doesn't happen as much in other service sectors, because if you're a lawyer, you're a lawyer. Yes, you can have a view of anything, but actually you don't pretend. Most people don't profess to be a legal expert unless they are one. Whereas with marketing, everybody's a marketeer. It would seem very frustrating.
It would seem. The frustration for me was these people would see me speak and they'd invite me into their businesses, and I'd go into their business and blow their minds with the opportunity. And then by the second time I go back, they're like the world's leading authority on marketing, and nothing that I suggested or that they were really excited about is going to be useful to them anymore. That was the big frustration for me.
Yeah.
But I think
they've usually spent 200 quid or something on PPC ads and decided that it doesn't work, and Martin was wrong, he was talking rubbish, and therefore we're going to drop that now because we've just spent 500 quid in a couple of weeks and nothing happened. So they don't give it the chance often, do they? Not just they just dip the toes, pull it out, and then on to the next thing. Very, very odd.
Very odd, but they do dip their toes. So the amount of times, like, I've been into a business and I've said, okay, telemarketing would be really good for you. They're like, oh no, we tried that, it didn't work. It's like, they called 5 people in 2006 and none of them were interested. Or email marketing, I don't really fancy that. I don't want to be spamming people. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and I don't know if this is a British thing, because it feels to me like in Britain, it's really not cool to be seen to be trying, which is marketing. Yes. Do you know what I mean? That's marketing, being seen to be trying. Whereas I think I speak to a lot of people in Australia, and I speak to a lot of people I speak to some people in the States. Whereas it doesn't matter how shit your thing is, you're definitely going to rinse it for everything it's worth, So I don't know if that's a British thing. And then the other thing is, it's not cool also to be seen to be successful, really. So people who are successful are kind of dicks is the problem in the UK. So there's these two like cultural problems with marketing. And there was something else I wanted to say about that. This goes back to the barrier to entry that you were talking about earlier. My frustration when I was running the effective marketing company properly and I was interested in having clients is that somebody would get laid off from whatever job they were doing, and then all of a sudden they'd be marketing themselves as a marketing consultant. And it's like, so there is no barrier to entry. So the question I have for you then is, you've got a really good sense of what works. I've got a really good sense of what works. It's probably not as different as anyone might imagine. Why hasn't marketing been codified and made less subjective? Like, for example, when Matt runs his ads, there is science to doing that work. Yes. There absolutely is formula to doing that work. So why hasn't marketing become more formulated? Because you won't get any disagreement from me. It's sales and marketing. First there's marketing, then there's sales, and that's how money comes into your business. And if that's not working, you're not going to have a business for very long. And the way businesses are structured is, if your business fails as a small business owner, you quite often fail. Very often your home is at risk. That will affect your family relations. You might lose your home, your wife, your children. All of these things are at risk. And then we've got this thing that no one really likes or wants to invest in, which is marketing, which is just a thing that they don't really like and they don't really want to do. Do you know what I mean? But I think it's the thing that will guarantee the success of your business. If you've got sales, you can buy yourself really good accountants, you can buy yourself really good lawyers, you can buy yourself really good production people and offices and equipment and all that stuff, but it's based on having the money. And the money comes through sales via marketing. That's where it comes from. So you've got me on a bit of a rant. The question was, and it's still, why has no one actually formulated marketing to make it more aligned with the other things that they value in their business? Accounts, legals, HR, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no, some great points again there, and a great question. I think, it's a frustration of mine. I am a big one for sort of, despite my creative agency background, I'm quite a structured person by nature. So I've often thought of myself, I'm a structured person working working for 25 years in a completely unstructured environment, in terms of marketing, which is a bit weird when I look at it like that. But yeah, why has nobody codified, structured it? I think it's polarized, hasn't it? That to some, I think part of the issue is it's polarized in terms of digital marketing, digital channels being created in the last sort of 10, 20 years, and means that data and results and numbers and the ability to sort of measure marketing has, in digital channels, in those channels, become more easier, and therefore people have naturally grabbed hold of that and traded upon that. Whereas the more creative aspects of, I guess, more traditional aspects of marketing and advertising and creating creative messaging isn't as easy to in any way to measure, but so therefore it haven't. But there's been a sort of polarization of those two things, which hasn't helped the entire process or function of marketing. But I think marketing is it's a thing with many moving parts, isn't it? And as you demonstrated earlier there, Martin, when you ask people, you talk to people and say to them, I think telemarketing, whilst it's not for everybody, I think it's something that's going to be really useful and interesting to try in your business. There's this sort of, well, we tried that in 1995 and it didn't work then. But actually the reality is, not only did they try it a long time ago, did they try it for long enough? What did they say? Who tried it? Who did they approach? Who, when they approached people, what on the end of the phone for that client? What was the script or the pitch, if you like? There can be so many things that go wrong, not disastrously wrong, but upset the balance, to means that the effectiveness of marketing can be put off kilter. That it's very hard to codify it, I think. And just you talked about marketing and pipeline and generating result. Absolutely, yeah. I'm totally with you. Marketing is fundamental to generating a pipeline of new business, whether that's new clients for agencies or new buyers for health drinks or whatever it might be. But you've got to have that pipeline. But I think people skip a lot of the other problems with marketing stem from the fact that people skip the foundation stage. They skip the foundation, the bedrock, the strategy piece, and jump straight to tactics. So they'll jump straight to telemarketing without thinking about who their potential customers really are, without defining them properly, without identifying when we're phoning them up as telemarketers. Again, this going back to not the actual line by line scripts, but the principle. What are we actually saying to people? Are we going straight in and pitching our product or our service? Are we talking to them first about their problems, and what are their problems? Do we really understand them? Do we really understand what they want from us, or are we just sort of shooting off in the dark? And so just as a quick example, when I talk to my agency clients, lots of agencies are inherently, bizarrely terrible at marketing themselves. Most agencies.
Okay, we are coming here. We are coming here at 100 miles an hour, definitely.
And massively, and why? Many reasons, I guess. One, because particularly this sort of cobbler shoes thing is because of what they do every day, I guess, is one aspect of it. But the other thing is, when agencies tell me they've got a new business problem, I often find out there is a new business problem. There's not enough pipeline, not enough clients coming through. But what stands behind that is actually a positioning problem. They're just another agency going out there touting for business, trying to find clients. There's nothing, they haven't codified, to use your term, what they're actually about, what makes their business interesting, what makes their business focused and targeted on certain clients. So they're just going out there and using tactics, email, telemarketing, whatever it might be, probably all of the above, to get out there and just create noise, really, which just often gets ignored and certainly doesn't create a sustainable pipeline. It might win the odd client here and there, but doesn't create a pipeline of business that they can rely on and is sustainable.
100%. So there was something I wanted to say before that. You see, if you distill marketing down, it's for me having the right product for the right people and then landing the right message at the right time.
Yeah.
It really is no more complicated than that, except, of course, there are layers to how in depth you want to go in terms of, like you say, understanding exactly who you add value for and what the right messages might be. And the message isn't just the words, it's the brand, it's the colors, it's the fonts, it's the, it's the imagery that goes along with it. So from there, it can go a million miles in every direction. But if you were to distill it down, that's essentially what marketing needs to do. And then they just throw the baton to sales, and sales should be closing things really easy. I think the problem I've seen in my career is that very often sales and marketing are the least valued roles in any business. And then they're like the two smallest kids in the playground picking on each other. Do you know what I mean? They're just blaming each other. And it should be a hand-in-hand operation. So that's what I wanted to say about that. In its essence, it's a very, very basic thing. You need to let the world know you've got this cool thing. Firstly, you need to have a cool thing. Let the world know you've got this cool thing. Now, marketing agencies, it doesn't hold muster. That's the phrase, isn't it? It doesn't hold monster. Yeah. Because you can say, okay, about the poor cobbler's kids' shoes, like the poor cobbler's kids always have the worst shoes. But that's not relevant in this instance, because if you can do that thing, have the right product, identify the right people, land the right message at the right time, you should, and if you value it enough to be selling it to the world, you should be investing in it yourself. Yeah. But like you say, so many marketing agencies can't. So the question is, and they will make excuses. Like, if I ever receive another email from an SEO company in my life, I'm going to scream, because if you're so good at freaking SEO, put yourself at the top of Google and stop spamming people. Do you know what I mean? It's like that. And there's no psychological, existential discovery that needs to go on. Like, SEO is effectively a mechanical process. Here's your keywords, here's the thing, here's your competition. So to do that. So here's the question. Is it that marketing agencies don't fancy the marketing, or is it, dun, 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 they can't do marketing? Because it can only be one of those two things.
Yeah, I've reflected recently. This didn't sadly occur to me when I was running my own marketing agency and employing lots of people in sales roles, or a succession of people in sales roles and a succession of people in marketing roles. But it only occurred to me recently that I think that, can agencies do marketing? The reality is, I think many, not every agency, but many agencies are working with clients in the B2C space. They're working on brands, and which is good, and nothing wrong in that whatsoever. But when you're marketing your own agency, you need a different set of marketing skills. You need to be good at, or hopefully expert at, business-to-business marketing, which you often uses similar channels, but has very different approaches and very different disciplines. And so there are many thousands of B2B marketing agencies out there. And do they market their businesses more effectively? Possibly, I'm not sure. It'd be an interesting debate or survey to have. But I think there's something in it. My agency was predominantly B2B in terms of its client base. B2C in terms of its client base. But when we were marketing ourselves, we needed to operate as a B2B marketing strategy. We were trying to target businesses, not consumers. So, did we have the skills? And looking back, we probably used our B2C core skills trying to market our own business, which didn't really work. So I think it's the latter of those two options. Cobbler shoes, people always give you, as you suggested, the excuse of time. I think there's another factor in there as well, particularly it's just about agencies again, sorry, but I think agencies are hooked on referrals as a drug. They're hooked on the drug of referrals. So lots of agencies get referred business from friends, network, clients, ex-clients. A large chunk of agency new business is from referrals, which is, as it's always been, is a very positive thing, is wonderful when it works, because you get an ex-client that's just moved to somewhere else that phones you up and says, hey, can you come and talk to us about doing what you used to do for me at Y company when I'm now at Z company? Brilliant. That's a very powerful thing, but agencies get hooked on that drug and find it very difficult to embrace the harder yards of generating cold or generating opportunities from cold. They hope the phone will ring or the email will ping from one of their ex-clients at some point, and often it does. For some agencies, it always seems to do. But what happens when it doesn't? What happens when the phones go cold? It's that's what often brings you talked about the challenges, the frustrations of running any business earlier on, which we all know about. But that's when things can become really tough when you're in a marketing agency, when there's no referrals coming in yet, you've not put any building blocks, any marketing activity in place to promote your own business. You're just waiting for the phone to ring and it doesn't. That's when things can get really tough. And that's what I try and encourage my clients to avoid, not to avoid the referrals, because they're brilliant when they come in, but use those as the cream, not as the the pie or whatever.
Yeah. So the point about that is, if they like, this is just like operating, it becomes too meta. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if they don't value it, then how are they expecting to deliver value for their customers by selling it? If they can't do it, how on earth do they expect to deliver value for their customers by selling it to them? And there are issues with this. Maybe I'm being too harsh. It's really hard. It's harder to market yourself. It's weird.
Yeah.
Like, it's much easier to sell somebody else than it is to sell yourself, because it's hard to big yourself up, especially if we're British. It's like, that's not our gig. That's not what we do. And so I've often asked the question, and so this is where, it just becomes stupidly meta, because now the question I often ask is, is it necessary? Is there a necessary agency component, i.e. an outside of the business, that you need in your marketing to be able to understand your marketing better? Like, does there need to be a halfway house between you and your market, which is the best example for it? And now we're saying, does there need to be a marketing agency to market marketing agencies? Do you know what I mean? But if there is, then why aren't they engaging? There's several networks. I've spoken to people like, I don't know if you know Robert Craven.
Yes, I do, yeah.
Yeah, there's an accountancy firm down in Hampshire, the Wow Company, specialising just working with marketing agencies.
Peter,
yeah, so he's a genius. He won't talk to me on my podcast. It's annoying me. But the thing is, so
he wrote the forward for my book, actually, Peter Chapman.
He did what?
He wrote the forward for the book, my book.
Fantastic. Well, you've got his attention, then I'm struggling. We were quite close in 2005, 2006. Too much time has passed, I think. But the point is that maybe there has to be an agency component to your marketing, is what I'm suggesting. Yes. Maybe it needs to be somebody from outside that needs to be directing or informing things, because maybe it's just too hard to do that. I don't know. So I've come full circle.
Yeah. No, I definitely think there's something in that. We all know, well, if you've worked in an agency, I think you usually be familiar with the scenario where a client comes to you with a brief and it's a rebranding, refresh of brand refresh of project, and the steps, the creative, the campaigns involved in that come very naturally to the agency. The agency can turn up and present a great proposal and a great presentation with what the client should do and how they should do it, and what as you mentioned earlier, the brand, the colours, the naming, the activity surrounding the launch, etc. Very just it's never quick, but they can get it like that. Whereas when they then look at themselves, well, what should we do? Very, very difficult to look at yourself, isn't it? What's our strengths? There's a degree of British reserve, I'm sure, but there's also, you can be too close to it, can't you? You can be
Yeah.
the wood, be too close to the wood to see the trees. You can be too wrapped up in what you're doing to really step back and say, actually, yeah, I know what we're really good at is SEO, for example. Why do we not just sort of stick to that specialism and promote that specialism? Why do we go out there with a broader, blander message about generic digital marketing when our passion is the very the function of SEO and
Yeah.
the very skilled application of those techniques to get up those rankings. That's what we love doing. But people don't often see that.
Yeah. I think across businesses and including marketing agencies, I don't like small businesses are very egotistical things. They're very much extensions of the business owner. And then they project the insecurities of the business owners. I think very often business owners are, whilst they might present as very confident, they don't really believe in the value that they're delivering in the world. And it's almost like
Yes.
you need a marketing agency to come in and tell you this is the value that you deliver. And maybe
Yeah.
marketing agencies then aren't immune from that, and they need somebody to come in and tell them,
Yeah.
which is why
Yeah.
you're in the world, bless you.
Yes. Well, I think I like to deliver some of that, but absolutely, yeah. And again, I think it's not easy, but it's easier. I think when you've got a product, it's a little bit easier in some respects. I mentioned our theoretical health drink example earlier. If you've developed that recipe, you've sweated over it in a kitchen for months, years, sometimes to perfect it, and you believe it's you really believe it's the best tasting, the healthiest concoction that you've come across. There's a real passion behind it, isn't there? There's a real ability to believe, and sometimes
Yeah.
you can be overconfident in it when it actually hits the market. There's many instances, sadly, where those types of businesses have hit the market, and everybody you and a few friends might believe it's the best tasting drink. You launch in to the wider world, and people go, "No, I don't really like that," or "It's not that interesting." And dreams are shattered, hopes and dreams. But with agencies, I think your 4Ps, the product and the place and all that sort of stuff, it is easy marketing. But I think with agencies in particular, I think they ignore and I talked about foundations and strategy. They ignore many aspects of the promotion and the place, but also the products. They said, well, product SEO is our product. Lots of people want that. SEO is the product. That's it, done. And in some instances it is, I understand that as a principle, but you've got to go deeper. You've got to not reformulate SEO, but you've got to look at how do we do SEO that's different to other people? How can we convince people that our SEO services are better than others? Whereas lots of agencies, well, we do SEO, but come and get it. You want SEO, we're the people. We're better than those people over the road because we've got an award, or we've got we're cheaper, or whatever it is. But it's quite sort of superfluous stuff, isn't it?
It is superfluous stuff. And yeah, but I think, see, this is the other thing that goes on that frustrates me is you'll find now, not so much now, maybe the bus has passed, but there was a period of time where people would stand up and say, okay, I'm a social media marketer. But actually, prior to there being social media, they weren't any kind of marketer. They just know where the buttons are on the social media. Do you know what I mean? And so that's a frustration. And like, I'm going to war with, do you know Gary Vaynerchuk? Are you aware of Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yes. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
really annoys me. I think he's the enemy because he perpetuates these kinds of also myths. But I reacted recently to one of his presentations, 35 minutes of marketing strategy that you can implement in your business immediately was kind of the subject. But there was no marketing strategy in it. There was no, this is how you should decide on what you sell, and this is how you should decide who you're going to sell to. And the only thing that he gave that you could implement in your business immediately was he said you should spend $6,000 a month on LinkedIn ads. And that was it. Do you know what I mean? Well, it's like, okay, good. Who am I targeting with those ads? What's the product? What's the,
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like all the strategy was devoid. So
yeah,
this, I think, feels to me to be a symptom of our industry where actually, and it's not easy because people don't want to spend time and money talking to marketers about strategy. They really don't. But there's not enough investment at that kind of level that
yeah.
because once you've done that work, everything is done. Then
Yes.
exactly, everything is done. So I think that's an issue. And there was another, no, there's a question
Is
in
it,
that.
you know, in that as well, Martin, is it, it is difficult. I see now not being, not, I work with agencies, I don't run agencies. So I'm an outsider to that degree, but it's very, very difficult to know who to believe, isn't it? Who to talk to, who to trust, who
Yes.
to, if you don't know what you don't know is a common phrase, isn't it? And if you're talking to somebody about SEO, well, three different people, agencies, whoever they might be about SEO, just for example, they're all going to be saying similar things, but people might start telling you quite technical stuff that loses you. You're not in SEO. You just need the service, and therefore, who do I trust here? Where do I place my money with as an investment on? And I think that's a factor in often, particularly smaller businesses with limited funds and limited knowledge. Maybe saying, "Well, I'm not going to do anything, or I'm going to just do the basics because I'm not going to invest in marketing really because I can't really see through this fog and
Yeah.
complex information that these people are presenting me."
And this was an issue for me in my business. I'll tell you where it got to. One of the last pitches I ever did, we went to see this guy, and we were like the sixth people in, and it was an SEO gig. And I always took pride in the fact that we would tell people exactly how it is, because I gave up on lying when I was about 12, when I realized I didn't have the memory for lying. I couldn't remember what actually happened and what I told people happened. So I'm just not a liar. I'm not very good at it. I don't do it. So we laid it down for him, but we were the sixth people in. And he said to me, "You know what, Martin? What you will find is that you will slide a lot further on bullshit than you will on glass." So he was essentially saying to me, lie to me.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
everybody before us had lied and told him, "Oh, no,
Yeah.
this is going to be fine. You want to be top for mobile phones next Tuesday? Yeah, we can do that for you." Do you know what I mean? And so there's an expectation from clients also that they want to be lied to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just frazzles my
Right.
mind. It
Yeah.
just goes round and round and up and down. And, marketing suppliers aren't reliable, but customers aren't taking responsibility. And what we've got in the meantime is thousands of businesses going out of business every year because they're not investing in having customers profitably, which is what being in business is. So I don't know what the answer to that is. But what I'm happy to tell you is that I am 100% confident that you are qualified to talk to us about mentoring agencies, which takes us then to question number 2. You've kind of alluded to it a little bit already, but
Yeah.
like kind of who you work with and how you add value to their lives. So what is it that marketing agency owners need mentoring in most? Is it really marketing is the key feature?
I think it's one of the features. So what I do, I work with marketing agencies of all different sizes, not startups. Usually established, maybe 3 years plus. I think people need to have found their feet a bit, learn some stuff and experience some stuff on their own before my value can really help them. But I work from 3 years, but to sort of bigger agencies where I sit on boards. But also, I find my sweet spot is those agencies that are, pitching and going for £1 million turnover. They're sort of at 10 people. They might be 600-700k turnover, but they want to get past that £1 million barrier, and as a benchmark. And that's what I work with, and I find out I can deliver the most value, and people get the most value out of me. They've learnt their own, they've earned some stripes on their own, got the business to a certain level, and then they just need to go to sort of the next level. That's where is my sort of sweet spot. And what I do with them, I think I sort of call it well, I sort of break it down to three sections actually. So I give them clarity. So I help them understand where they are now, and where they want to be. And that sounds very simple and easy in a 10-minute conversation, but depending on who they are, it's usually longer than that. And depending on who they are, they need different things. They might need more financial clarity. I often find people aren't at that stage, even though they've got a reasonably sized business there. They're not as familiar and up to speed with the numbers in the business as they should be. Not trying to turn them into accountants, but they need to know that lots of people need to know their numbers better, as an example. But other people might be very, clued up on the numbers, but have other weaknesses or in that space as well. So find out where they are now compared to other people, where they want to get to. Do they want to be that £10 million agency with hundreds of people and then exit in 3 years' time? Do they want to be that agency, but actually a dose of reality, guys, it's probably, not to try and dampen your enthusiasm, but it's probably going to take you longer than 3 years. It might take you 5 years or 10 years. Are you still up for that journey? If they are, great. But if they're, if they're sort of more wanting quicker results, we sort of look at it and provide clarity on where they want to be. Do they just want to they want a lifestyle business, solid agency that does great work? We identify that. So we do the clarity sprint, as I call it. Then we look at strategies. How are we going to achieve the goals? So there's a strategy sprint where we put together a strategy, and that's across 7 pillars, actually, as I call them. One of the pillars is what I call pipeline, but it's sales and marketing. And that's often, as you suggest, and we've talked about it for the last sort of 20 minutes or so, a weakness, usually a weakness in some way. Some are better than others, but it's usually a weakness. There's usually work to do there. Very rarely is that perfect, because frankly, they wouldn't be probably talking to me. They'd be well beyond £1 million if the marketing was really up to scratch. But it's not the only. There's 6 other pillars: people, products and services, proposition, financial performance. So there's other processes. There's another 6. There's 7 in total that we work through, and we put together a strategy that around those 7 pillars that's going to get them to where they want to be in the next, usually 3 years as a time frame. That doesn't mean to say it's necessarily the end, hopefully, but we work to 3 years. We used to work to 5 years out years ago. It feels a bit long. 3 years seems a reasonable amount of time, long enough to set some stretching goals and work to them, but short enough not to feel too far into the distance, and the fact that who knows what we're going to look like or be like in the world when 5 years comes along. And then, so there's clarity, strategy, and then the key bit that I do, and this is where the mentoring comes in, is the accountability, really. So I then meet with my clients, usually monthly, sometimes twice a month, depending on the client and the needs. But I provide a level of accountability through mentoring, which is I help them solve problems, I look at challenges, but most importantly, I try to hold them to account to deliver on what they said they were going to do, which is a really, that's often the game changer for people, really. We use non-execs, as we call them. I don't really like that term now, but we use non-execs in our business to come in every month and hold me and my business partner to account. We were employing them as non-execs, but it was very easy for me and my business partner running the business, even a bigger business, to give each other latitude and excuses on delivering stuff. So if I said I was going to do one thing one month and my business partner said he was going to do another thing one month, when it came to the next board meeting, if we hadn't really done it when we were together, owners of the business, it's very easy to say, oh, you know what, you know how busy I was with X. And he'd say to me, oh, no, I understand that. And you know how busy I've been with Y. And we'd sort of say, well, we'll do it next month. Whereas somebody, a third party coming in, gives you that level of, as long as you respect and trust and use them properly, they give you that level of accountability that just means to say, I don't want to turn up to that meeting and not having done that whilst I've got Gareth or whoever it might be in the room or on the screen. So it just pushes things along a bit. Doesn't always work at the end of the day. Other priorities come along. Doesn't always work every month in terms of, things do sometimes get missed, but we always pick stuff up and we just make progress, have more traction by just having that level of mentoring and accountability that I can provide them with through my meetings.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, that's exactly what people know. I think the thing is about the where you are and when you want to go, where you want to go, that for me is like 70% of the strategy. You know, once you've got those things
Yeah,
done,
yeah,
then it's pretty obvious what needs to happen in
yeah,
between. I think the accountability is huge because if no one's managing you, then it's really easy not to do something today. And if you didn't do it yesterday, then you don't need to do it tomorrow. And if you didn't do it tomorrow, you don't need to do it this week or next week. And then all of a sudden, years have passed and that thing hasn't happened.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I remember one
And
of
that's
the
where the marketing agencies, Martin, sorry to interrupt, as well. Marketing often falls in that list, doesn't it? Of,
yes,
we know we should be doing. We said we'd launch a podcast for the agency, and
yeah,
we're going to do that. We'll launch a podcast, and either it's launched and we do one, or and stop, or we don't launch. We'll launch it next. We'll do it next month. Next month. Let's start it in the new year. Then it just sort of gets kicked down the road, really.
yeah. I remember one of my first clients. This came from networking. She was like a little local web design company. This was 2005. And I turned up for our first meeting. She's like, "Oh, I nearly cancelled you because I've got so much that I have to get done today." And anyway, I was there. So I'm like, "Well, let's just look at what it is that you've got done today." So we literally listed all the things that she had to get done that day. And then we put some basic times, like how long it would take to do each of those things. And it was something like 28 hours of work that she was expecting to get done by 5 o'clock that day. So I think
Yeah,
there's approaches to accountability. The first one is don't commit to do things that you're never ever going to be able to do.
yeah,
And then the second thing is, like you say, prioritize the things you are going to do. So that's brilliant. I was blessed in my agency in that I was good at sales and marketing and interested
yes,
in sales and marketing. And that
yeah,
had the effect that we would always do the sales and marketing,
yeah,
and then our customers would come and say, "Oh, we want marketing like yours." Do you know what I mean? We want a
yeah,
website that looks like yours, or we want messages that
yeah,
look like yours, or whatever. The downside for me is that I was never good, or I never found anyone. I should have had a partner who was
mm,
as good at delivering as I was good at sales and marketing, and it
yes,
would have
yeah,
worked. But as it was, I just like completely stressed for 9 years because people wanted to continue buying stuff, and I never
yeah,
found the mechanism. I'm not saying that my customers were unhappy or I failed my customers. We found a way to
yeah,
deliver value, but
yeah,
actually the way to deliver value was hugely costly for my health and my sanity and my stress levels. So
yeah.
I think,
I see that all the time. I think that's a great example and I see that a lot actually. Um, that having somebody in the agency that's good and interested in sales and marketing is fundamental to success. But also having somebody that is more process driven, more organised, more willing to sort of do the hard yards and manage the hard yards is also fundamental to success. It's rare you get that in one person. It can happen. It's the Rocket Fuel, the Gino Wickman book. If you've ever read that, it's the sort of visionary and integrator model of somebody that is. We all have both, aspects of each of those traits. But if you can get somebody that is a visionary, somebody that can create ideas, go out there and promote you, etc., and then an integrator, somebody that in the business that can make things happen. If that's you as one person in an individual, great, but it is rare that it's better if you can have. You need to have that balance. I mean, that's where lots of people benefit from a business partner. But equally, you can have business partners that are both integrators,
yeah,
and or you do great work, but you don't get new customers. Or you can have both business partners that are both visionaries, so you're out there promoting yourself, but you don't deliver on what clients do get upset because you don't deliver on what you say you're going to deliver. So
yeah.
I think that's a balance.
And it's also possible that you have a partner who's completely useless and not good for anything. I've seen people in that business as well. So,
Yeah,
yeah, so that's
true.
interesting. But I mean,
That's
that
the
was
word.
definitely the failing of my business is
Yes.
that, and in all fairness, I mean, it wasn't a catastrophe in the end. I just stopped doing it. It's not as if it crashed and burned. But there's something about people's heads go out the window when they go into business. Like, people very often make the analogy about you need a driving certificate, a driving license before you can drive a car. You have to sit an exam, you have to have lessons and all this stuff. You can drive a business without them. The driving analogy that gets me is that if you're in your car and you get a feeling that things are going wrong, you will 100% of the time pull over and have a little investigation of what might be going wrong. Whereas if you're in your business and you get sense that things are going wrong, it's like pedal to the metal. It's like, if we just go faster, things will resolve themselves. And I don't think they do. And the reason I'm saying that is because I don't think people invest enough in their businesses in terms of having a mentor, in terms of having a sounding board, in terms of having somebody who will just give you an outside perspective or a sanity check. Do not expect yourself to deliver 28 hours of work every day. It can't be done. Do you know what I mean? It's so, I think that's a really valuable thing. I think that's a really valuable thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Great.
Cool. So do you have like a short recommendation for anyone who is looking to do better in their marketing agency?
Can I mention my book?
No, without mentioning your book. We're going to come to what do you recommend people read in a second.
Oh, we're coming to the book. Sorry.
Yeah, we are coming to that. Yeah.
Yeah. So recommendation, I think the one thing and it is actually a theme in the book I'm going to mention in a minute. Actually, it's the theme that underpins all the book actually. But it's the one thing that people should do more of is focus. So I think people try, as you just alluded to there, people try to do too many things, bite off more than they can chew in their workload. They try to provide too many services, that they purport to provide too many services, that many of them that they've probably got very little experience in, but they feel the need or the pressure to provide more services for some reason than they actually are good at. The lack of focus, people feel the need is to work with anybody. I'll work with any clients, me. If I can work with Nike, great. But I'll also work with the web designer down the road that needs some SEO on their website. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so focus in workload, focus on the business proposition, being focused on the numbers. So I always apply the word focus to everything I do, and I think the more that am I really focusing here, or am I just spraying and trying to do too much and deliver too much for too many people, and am I trying to do too much myself and deliver too much myself? Can I delegate stuff? What should I stop doing before taking on something that I should start doing and adding into my list? So focus would be my recommendation.
100%. And I will validate that. And it's niching, isn't it? It's like, but I think that it goes back to what we were saying before. People don't have confidence in the value of what they're delivering. So what they tend to do is put something generic out in the hope that something will just land.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that people don't understand is that the reason for me that you do marketing is that you have lots of opportunities to sell, because then you can be really fussy about who you sell to, and you can avoid the shitty clients. Like, shitty clients are the death knell for marketing agencies. They will just kick you in the nuts all day, every day. And that is tremendously hard work. And so if you're doing marketing, then you can start to be really fussy about who you work with. And immediately you're going to be much more successful, because you're going to pick the clients that you can deliver success for. And that's how it works.
And charge more for it. If you've got the opportunities to work, if you develop more, a stronger pipeline or whatever you want to call it, you've got more. You want more people want to work with you than you know what to do with. Then you can start to
put your rates
charge
up.
more and just put your rates up and just work with not the bigger necessarily, but the ones that are prepared to invest more in you and work with you better.
Who are better clients, I think. The more they invest, the better they are. Certainly. Okay, good. What was the other thing I wanted to say about that? I wanted to say something about that. We're overrunning slightly. Are we still cool?
We're still cool, yeah, of course.
Okay, super cool. Okay, good, because we couldn't end this without asking, what you recommend people read. We do have a bit of a review. Um, Matt described it as a wow moment, your book, um, Standout or Die. He described it as a wow moment. So I don't know if you'd recommend that people would read your book. Do you recommend that?
I think I tend, even though I am British and guilty of British reserve and not promoting myself, it would be remiss of me, wouldn't it, to not recommend people read my own work. So where are we? There we go.
Yes.
There's the book.
Perfect.
Stand up. That's on
Cool.
screen. So I wrote that. So that's it's about how to make your digital marketing agency more visible, valuable, and desirable. And it is about standing out, really, but standing out because because there's so many agencies, as we've probably touched upon. Trying to stand out in that sea of agencies. There's so many because there's so few barriers to entry, as we talked about earlier. There's so many good ones. There's so many bad ones. There's so many people in between. So this book is designed to help it gives a framework. I used to think it was called an acronym, but somebody told me recently it's an acrostic. So it's 7 principles which spell out as an acrostic the word roadmap. So there are 7 principles. First one's reset, objective, authority, domain, methodology, advantage, and profile, roadmap. It gives people a steer and guides them, if they're running an agency, into how they might stand out, but in a sustainable way, in a sort of structure, to your point earlier, more of a structured and codified, sustainable way, not a hey, let's stand out by doing something wild and wacky. Do something wild and wacky if you want, but lots of people look at it. I'm going to stand out by doing this, and usually people do in agencies. I find people trying to emulate each other. They think they're standing out by having a dog in the office, or by winning awards, or by telling people that they're the best agency at whatever. And by having a great team, and by playing pool at lunchtimes or whatever it might be, but actually, I'm working as partners for clients. That's what Hey, I'm unique. I'll work with you as a partner. None of that stuff is unique, really. But then there are other agencies out there, more the Gary Vaynerchuks, I guess, that are out there trying to sort of create a real splash, and that has a value. But I'm trying to sort of cater for people that are are looking for growth, and looking for sustainable growth. And to build their business, and to sell it in the future. Don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-sales of agency. If you can build a business and then realize the value at the end of it in a period of time, that's absolutely fantastic. But also, as I said at the start, I'm working with people that hopefully want to build a business and realize some value in running it, value financially, but also value in enjoying what they're doing, and running a great business, and working with some great people in the business, but working with some great clients and delivering some great value to those clients as well. So that's my recommendation. Standout or Die. It's on Amazon.
It sounds fantastic. I am going to pick up a copy. What did I want to say? I don't think it is so difficult to stand out. I think even by having that attitude, like, you want to stand out. It's like,
Yes.
for me, like, marketing messages, or marketing isn't very difficult. What you need to do is deliver value, and then evidence the value that you've delivered, So, but you're right, 100%. People don't have that attitude. They really don't, which is why you stand out if you do. Cool.
Yeah. The R in roadmap is reset, but the chapter is the principle is master your mindset. So it's absolutely that. It's start with your mindset. Do you want to stand out? Do you want, what type of business? What we've been talking about today, Martin, to some degree. What type of business do you want to run? Why? Are you sure? Are you sure you want a 300-person agency with 17 offices across the globe that's going to have you traveling all over the world and managing 300 people ultimately, and all that comes with that? Or do you want a 15-person agency that's close to home, and people that you can not only work with but go out for a pint with afterwards, and do some great work, or somewhere in between?
100%. And it gives me the heebie-jeebies. Even 15 people, 5 people.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
I've been there. Do you know what I mean? It's really hard. Now, what did Matt say? Matt said that from reading your book, he realised that he was a standstill business rather than a standout business. Is that
Yes,
a
yeah,
yeah?
yeah. So that's the thing. So in my book, I use it's an entirely fictional avatar of a chap called Adrian that runs a fictional
Perfect.
agency in Bristol called Treadmill. So
Perfect.
Adrian and Treadmill are good. Adrian's a good guy, completely fictional, good guy, but he's running a business, decent business. One of those sort of yeah, 400 or 500K businesses, decent agency. But he's at a standstill. He's plateaued. His growth's plateaued. His business is sort of not failing. It's just stagnant. So I call that's a standstill agency, and it's how the principles of the roadmap and the rest of the book is how you can become a standout agency, and how what Adrian's problems are, and some of the problems Matt and other people might hopefully will empathise with. Some of the problems they won't. Some of the problems that actually, Adrian might be struggling with that in Treadmill. We don't have a problem with that. As you mentioned earlier, we're great at sales and marketing. It's the delivery that we struggle with. We're not because we can't do it, just because we aren't. Operationally, we don't deliver very well as we should do to cope with the business we come in or whatever it is. So some of the Adrian's problems, challenges, and why he's a standstill business will resonate with lots of people, but some of them won't. But it's the standstill to stand out dynamic.
Perfect. Cool. It sounds really good. I am going to get hold of your book. That's what I'm going to do. Is there anything else you'd recommend that people read?
There's lots of good books out there. Obviously, I read a lot of agency books. The book I meant, but non-specifically, the book I mentioned earlier. Actually, I mean, there's Gino Whitman wrote the book Traction, and it's all he's sort of built an entire framework and created an entire business out of all that stuff. But he's got another book which I think is a bit newer. Actually, well, it's not a new book, but it's newer than Traction. But the Rocket Fuel book that I mentioned. If you're running a business with a business partner or partners, a relatively small business, doesn't have to be an agency. It's not about agencies, but I found that a really interesting book because I reflected on a lot of it in my experience with my business partner and that visionary and integrator dynamic, and looking at, it's not about putting people in boxes, but it's just seeing why are we falling down here? Because I know an agency, just an example, I know an agency, great business. There's two founders of that business, great agency, but they're both very much integrators. They need that visionary sales profile building spark in their business, which as founders they have got some of that. Of course, they're not.
Okay. Sorry, just give me a second.
Yeah.
5 minutes, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Rocket Fuel is a good book.
Rocket Fuel's a good book. And Traction.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Cool. Okay, so that leaves us then with the final question, which is who can you throw under the bus? Who can you introduce me to who might endure at least, or maybe even enjoy to have a conversation like this with me? We might just check in and see how you're feeling about the conversation that we've had. Has it been a pleasant experience?
It certainly has. I've really enjoyed it, Martin. I think not just the ability that you've given me to talk about what I've been doing, but also some of the conversations, some of the topics we've touched upon seem to be sort of subjects close to both our hearts. So I think it was good to have that debate. Shame we couldn't have done it with a pint of something in our hands in Barley, not in Yorkshire where I am, but in Barley where you are. But never mind, maybe next time.
That would be really nice. Yeah, cool. Okay, good. So you should, whenever you fancy coming, I will give you the inside track so we can do that. We get a pair of pints. So you should be happy then to throw a couple of people under the bus for me. So who have you got in mind?
Yeah. So somebody, I haven't asked her about this, obviously, but there's a lady I work with in Edinburgh. She's based in Edinburgh, and Alex Porter Smith, she's called. I'll put you in touch with the details. And she works with a partner, and they're a small but perfectly formed video production company. and filmmakers. And Ethan's the creative genius. Alex sort of runs the business and does all the sort of production. And Alex they're on a bit of a journey. They're sort of 5 years old. They're growing the business. They've done some good work, but they're trying to promote themselves more. And Alex has done a great job of pulling together some webinars for some of her clients and some people, and doing more on social and doing a bit more speaking. And hopefully she'll be interested, but I think it'd be great. She'd be great to get her on. It'd be great for her. She's really come on leaps and bounds in terms of from where she was, in terms of her ability and how she's able to and wanting to embrace these sort of things. So I think it'd be a great experience for her, but also she's a fabulous, if you're interested in video and filmmaking, she knows all about it. Her partner Ethan is the creative guy behind the camera, and they're a great double act. So I'd recommend Alex certainly to have a go.
Great. That sounds like a great recommendation. Cool. Is there another one in case that one doesn't work?
Yes. Who else can I think of? So there's a chap that he runs his own podcast, but there's a guy who runs an agency in Leeds who I've known for a long time called Manpreet Singh Manny Singh. He's a good guy. He runs a digital agency called Bobble. He's a good guy. He runs his own podcast, but I'm sure he'd be happy to come on as a guest and talk digital marketing with you and marketing in general. Manny's a great guy. He's
Cool.
got 5, 6, 7 people now, I think, in his agency, and does some great work on in Leeds for various clients. So he's a good guy.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. So if you could make like an email introduction or a LinkedIn type introduction
Yes.
or something like that, that would be absolutely first prize. Cool. So we got to the end. How are you feeling?
I feel good. I really enjoyed that. Thank you for your time and for inviting me on.
Thank you very much for being here. So what we'll do is we'll say the pretend goodbye now for anyone who's still with us. And then I'll stop recording. Then we'll say goodbye like normal human beings. So, man, it feels to me, it sounds to me like maybe because of, what Matt was saying about the brilliant work that you've done with him, that you're doing really valuable work. And I can't find anyone who isn't in these conversations, to be honest. But it's really refreshing and heartening to know that people are doing really good work, because this is the direction that success flows in. It flows through really good marketing agencies, through really good businesses, into people's lives. And that's what really excites and motivates me. So, man, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I have had a fantastic conversation. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks again, Martin. Yeah, really good to meet you and see you and talk to you about all things marketing and particularly agencies. Really enjoyed it.
Super cool. Thank you. Here's an idea. Why don't I message Peter again and say you've recommended that he talks to me now? That might get his attention. I'll do that as well. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. And you can deny it entirely if it ever comes up in conversation.
Yeah.
You're an absolute legend, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Martin. Thanks again.